Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the opening ceremony. Color Guard, present the colors. Color Guard, present the colors. Everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Scout, attention. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color Guard, post the colors. Color Guard, retreat. Please join me in reciting the Scout Oath. Scout sign. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty, to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. 2. Please be seated. Good afternoon. My name is Josh Edmondson. As Assistant Senior Patrol Leader for Troop 322, it's my pleasure to call this Eagle Court of Honor to order. I would like to introduce today's Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Wesley Higgins.
Thank you. I'm Wesley Higgins. I'm the Scoutmaster for Troop 247, and I'm very pleased to be the Master of Ceremonies for this Eagle Scout Court of Honor. We are here to recognize the accomplishments of Grant Robinson. He's earned the highest rank in scouting, and a scout must spend a great deal of time and effort fulfilling these requirements in order to reach that rank. Grant's efforts, as well as those of his scout leaders and his family, culminate today in the presentation of this Eagle Scout badge. It is an occasion of pride and joy, and as well, it's a time of reflection. At this point, I'd like to call Troop 322's chaplain aides to ask God's blessing on this ceremony.
A Scoutish reverence. Lord, you bring us together this afternoon to honor an Eagle Scout. We acknowledge your guidance in helping boys and adults work together to build stronger character. Strong character, physical fitness, ethical leadership, and an appreciation of the outdoors. Lord, continue to watch over these boys as they grow up into young men, and give the adults the patience and wisdom to guide them. Amen.
Thank you. Scoutmaster Scott Edmondson, would you please come forward?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Scott Edmondson. I'm the Scoutmaster of Troop 322. Today is my pleasure to present Eagle candidate Grant Robinson for the rank of Eagle. As we began this Eagle Court of Honor and examined the Eagle Trail, it is fitting that we began today with a pledge and an oath. The Scout Oath that we recite is the guiding principle of scouting. The Scout Oath sets our internal direction. We declare our duty to God, country, others, and self in that order. Also within the oath are the rules that we must follow to provide guidelines to our duties. The rules of scouting are found in the 12 points of the Scout Law. Let us pay careful attention to the words and rededicate ourselves to the principles contained in those words. Scouts, will you join me in slowly reciting the Scout Law? Scouts, attention. Scout sign. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. 2. Thank you. You may take your seats. When a boy joins Boy Scouts, there is within him something that we call Scout spirit. The boy may not know it's there or know its meaning, but by following the trail to Eagle, the Scout is enlightened. This single candle before you represents that spirit. The spirit of scouting embodies the principles of the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. It becomes a shining beacon of inspiration. Alone, this light may seem feeble, but when multiplied by the more than 3.5 million boys in scouting around the world, it is powerful indeed. Let me light that light. The path to Eagle may be described as a steep trail leading up to 3 peaks, the highest being that of Eagle Scout. Wayne, can you bring up the trail? Keep going. I sprung this PowerPoint presentation on Wayne today, so don't hold it against him. There we are. The trail starts, first of all, with a Scout badge, and that's considered the joining badge, and then officially begins the trail with the tenderfoot rank and continues through second class and first class ranks. During this phase, the Scouts are given instruction and guidance. They are learning important outdoor skills, including camping, cooking, physical fitness, and developing teamwork and leadership skills. They are also being examined. The adult leaders are watching to see if the flicker of light representing duty, service, and law is growing within. Reaching first class is an important step in a Scout's life. He has demonstrated that he has met the requirements of each rank and is showing that Scout spirit. That's when the mountain climbing begins. To begin the climb, the Scout first is asked, are you ready for the next challenge? Secondly, can you and will you teach others what you've learned? The path going forward is marked with service, leadership, exploration, and a stronger presence of the Scout spirit. The first peak to be reached is that of Star Scout. Advance, please, sir. The Scout has provided leadership to his troop. He has provided service to fellow Scouts and to his community, and is completing merit badges of personal interest as well as those required to reach the Eagle rank. At this point, the Scout is a star. He has done well. The scouting family expects the light to be shining a little bit more brightly. The second peak is the Life Scout. Again, the Scout must complete several hours of service to the community. The Scout must demonstrate additional leadership within the troop. The Scout must complete several merit badges, and finally, the Scout must have embodied the Scout spirit in his daily life. The badge for the Life Scout contains a heart. This is the only rank position that shows what Boy Scouting is all about and what is inside the Scout. This rank badge answers these questions. Does he understand his duty? Does he understand the 12 points of the Scout Law? What is in the young man's heart? What could be more important than this rank? The third peak is that of Eagle Scout. The Scout has demonstrated he is a star, and he has embodied the Scout spirit in his life. Now he must be tested on one final climb to see if it's truly part of his character. The requirements are much the same as Star in life. However, the scout must now go into the community, plan, organize, coordinate, and deliver a service project, a demonstration of leadership and character. And one final time, the scout must go before a group of adults who focus on his character, his leadership, and his scout spirit. Does he reach the peak? Has he proven himself? Can he leap from the top peak and fly like an eagle? Grant, are you an eagle? At this time, Assistant Senior Patrol Leader Joshua Edmondson, I'd like for you to escort Grant to the front. I like this next line. Awarding the Eagle Badge of Rank is an important and serious matter. It's the goal toward which this scout has been working for several years. It's a culmination of effort by his parents and scout leaders. It is an occasion for pride and for joy, but it is also a time of serious contemplation. The Eagle rank is the highest and most coveted award in all of scouting, and it is the last major step in the advancement program. If at this point scouting has not achieved its purpose of building character, then it probably will not. These thoughts, which are the basic code of scouting, are well summed up in the pledge that is taken by every scout in the council upon advancement to Eagle rank. Grant, I will read to you this pledge so that you'll know to which you are about to promise, and then I will ask you to repeat it after me. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to my country. I reaffirm my allegiance to the three promises of the Scout Oath. I thoughtfully recognize and take upon myself the obligations and responsibilities of the rank of Eagle Scout. On my honor, I will do my best to make my training an example and make my rank and influence strongly count for better scouting and for better citizenship in my troop, in my community, and in my contact with other people, regardless of race, color, or creed. To this, I pledge my sacred honor. Grant, having heard the Eagle Pledge, are you willing to adopt it?
Yes, sir.
The Eagle Scout candidate will now take the Eagle Pledge, but I would also like for all Eagle Scouts in attendance today, would you please stand? And would you all please come up here on the podium? As the candidate takes this pledge for the first time, I would also like for these Eagle Scouts to reaffirm their pledge. So you will repeat after me in unison. Scouts, attention. Scout sign. On my honor, I will do my best.
On my honor, I will do my best.
To do my duty to God.
To do my duty to God.
On my honor, I will do my best.
On my honor, I will do my best.
To do my duty to my country.
To do my duty to my country.
I reaffirm my allegiance.
I reaffirm my allegiance.
To the three promises of the Scout Oath.
To the three promises of the Scout Oath.
I thoughtfully recognize and take upon myself.
I thoughtfully recognize and take upon myself
The obligations and responsibilities.
the obligations and the responsibilities
Of the rank of Eagle Scout.
of the rank of Eagle Scout.
On my honor, I will do my best.
On my honor, I will do my best
To make my training an example.
to make my training an example
And make my rank and influence
and make my rank and influence
strongly count for better scouting
strongly count for better scouting
and better citizenship
and better citizenship
in my troop,
in my troop,
in my community,
in my community,
and in my contact with other people,
and in my contact with other people,
regardless of race, color, or creed.
regardless of race, color, or creed.
To this I pledge my sacred honor.
To this I pledge my sacred honor.
2. If you guys will remain here just a minute. Since the parents of the scout have been so instrumental in his attaining this Eagle rank, I would like to ask our Senior Assistant Patrol Leader to escort them to the platform. The symbol of your success is the Eagle badge and medal. Don't do that, I'll lose it. Before this medal and badge is presented to your mother to pin over to your heart and to your father to present to you, I will ask that each of our Eagle Scouts present on this platform to pass it among them to the next. By doing so, these Eagle Scouts affirm and recognize the hard work that you have put into achieving this rank and welcome you to this special fellowship. And now you guys may take your seats. Thank you very much. At this time, I'll present the Eagle Scout medal to Grant's mom so she can pin it on above his left pocket.
Don't you think I didn't think about pink? Okay.
Tom, I'll present the badge to you. In recognition of the wisdom and guidance given to you by your father, can you read that again? In recognition of the wisdom, really? And guidance given to you by your father, will you present him with this Eagle Father's pin, which I will know he will wear proudly in your honor? And now, in recognition of the many hours of patient guidance given by your mother, many hours of patient guidance, many hours of patience and guidance, maybe. I'm not sure about the wisdom and patience. How about the many hours of patience, guidance, and wisdom that your mother has given to you? Would you please pin this mom's pin onto her? You did this, didn't you?
You told me to roll it up. I rolled it up.
Okay. And now it's my pleasure, having served as Grant's Cub Master and Scout Master throughout his scouting career, I will be removing his troop neckerchief and presenting him with his Eagle neckerchief. And Grant, I believe you have a presentation to make of an Eagle Mentor pin.
Yes, sir, I do. Parents, you may take your seat. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming to my Eagle Scout Court of Honor. It really means a lot. Just so much to see every single one of you here. I don't really like things being shown on me, but I really appreciate it. Being a part of this organization has been a large blessing on my life. From being a Cub Scout and my first camp out as a Boy Scout, from being a Cub Scout and my first camp out as a Boy Scout, all the way to now, as I am preparing to move away for college, I can say that Boy Scouts and the family it has given me will always be a part of my life, and I will never forget it. But before I get all teary-eyed, I'd like to present mentor pins. So every Eagle Scout has to give out a pin called the mentor pin, and it is given to a man in a boy's life who has inspired him to achieve this rank of Eagle Scout. And I just couldn't give away one, because when I was told to give this, two people came to mind. These two men are Mr. David Sellers and Mr. Pat Williams. Yep, just stay. Hold on. Pat and David have always been these just monuments in my life that I just always look up to as men of God, men of just everything that a Boy Scout stands up to. And Pat's an Eagle Scout and David's not, but I still look up to David because David displays these qualities of strength and determination, and I can always remember him, teaching me these things, whether it's through martial arts and working out or just coming to church. And Pat was always one of the first people to congratulate me every time I would get something in Scouts, because it's what motivated me to keep going. And so Josh, if you could please escort these two men to the front. Give them a round of applause.
And now will the audience please rise? By the virtue of authority vested in me by the National Council of Boy Scouts America, I hereby present to you our newest Eagle Scout, the 81st Eagle Scout of Troop 322. Let's give Grant a round of applause. All right, thank you. You can be seated again. If y'all thought Grant was through talking, you're sadly mistaken. And Grant, I could tell you some stories about Pat. I grew up next door to him, so we'll talk later. So at this time, I would like to invite Grant to say a few words about his scouting experience.
Scott says a few words, but I have 2 pages written down. Hello again. I want to thank you all again for coming one more time, but there are just a few special people I'd like to mention. Um, First off, I'd like to take a moment to honor a close friend of mine who couldn't make it today. Justin Dobbs was one of the biggest reasons why I remained in Scouts, because seeing him and the way he lived his life is everything that a Scout, an Eagle Scout, just a person in general should be. He was one of my closest friends, and for those of you that don't know, Justin Dobbs passed away my third year of scouting. And it's a struggle that he wasn't here to see this day. But I'm just glad that I made it. And I want to thank him for a lot of things that he did for me while I was a young scout to motivate me to get to where I am today. Another key person I would like to thank, who's also not here, he didn't die, he's just in Paris, is George Colburn. Some of you younger scouts don't know George, but people like me and Keith and Grayson and Dylan and Scott, JT and Michael, you guys know who George was. George was this legendary scout. Like, you look up Eagle Scout in the dictionary, you see a picture of George. He was just the coolest guy to be around. He had some awesome stories. He was just very insightful into the way he looked on life. And one of my best memories of scouting was my first summer camp. Every year, we all go to Sequoia for a summer camp, for a week-long summer camp. And me, I was a mama's boy. This was my first time away from home, for an extended trip. And, it was rough. But the third day, I woke up early, and I just couldn't go back to sleep. And so I went out to the lake to just kind of, sit and think for a little bit. And wouldn't you know it, who else is there? George. And he's also sitting there because he woke up early. And I remember he was just one of the first people I ever opened up to with all of my insecurities and just everything that I'd been going through as a young scout, how I joined, why I joined, and his insight and I'm pretty sure he was an Eagle Scout at the time. And just the way that he just spoke and just looked, it was like, it's just what I wanted to be. And I'll tell you what, I think the lake had to do with it because there was mist all over it and it looked like something from Lord of the Rings. And so I was like, but I really want to thank George, even though he's not here. He's a great guy. So since George is the person who kind of kept me in scouting, there are a few people, guys like JT, Rhett Rickles, or JT Edmondson, Rhett Rickles, Grayson Wright, Michael Edmondson, and Dylan Dalton are guys that made me enjoy scouts. They're guys who also they were ahead of me, but they were some guys who had been through it. They helped me along, and just seeing how they enjoyed stuff. And one of my best memories was me and JT on a canoeing trip. I got stuck with him because he was a lifeguard, and I couldn't swim very well. And we were going down this river, and there were some waterfalls on this river. And the first time we got twisted around, and we went down a waterfall backwards. A lifeguard and a guy who could hardly swim. And that was just one of the best things about scouting ever. Because we went down it, and we got twisted around because it was a little rocky. And then all of a sudden, we started to just, oh my gosh, we're going backwards. And we just kind of let go and went down. And once we came out, we were like, Oh my gosh. And then I remember Rhett Rickles at summer camp. He just had all these just stories, and he would just go really in depth into them. And I think every night we had story time with Rhett, and that was fun. That was fun. And then Grayson and Michael, I looked up to them, but they were only a year ahead of me, so I felt like they just kind of paved the way. They were there, like I could just follow in their footsteps. I mean, they probably followed in other people's footsteps, but I got to watch them, grow up as well. Just really appreciate those guys a lot. I'd also like to give a shout out to Keith Phillips. This man, this guy right here. This guy right here has been with me since Cub Scouts. We were in the same Cub Scout den together. We crossed over into Boy Scouts together. We were in the same patrols together. Out of the 4 boys that crossed over, we are the only 2 who have made it to Eagle Scout. And Keith, he's like my scouting partner. Like, we were pretty much the same age, doing the same thing, and I always knew that Keith had my back. And Keith, I just hope you know that I had your back the whole time as well. But Keith has been a big part of my life as well, being just there with me, someone who so I wasn't going at it alone, with someone who understood what I was going with. Now, it's not just the boys who helped me out, but the leaders as well. And if you were an assistant scout leader, a scoutmaster in our troop, could you please stand up? Those 2 guys right there, and then there are some others as well who aren't here. They just helped get everything. They were just great guys, And then there's Chris Phillips, who is mighty man. Chris Phillips put every inch of his soul into our Boy Scout troop. He was always doing something to help us. He was a quartermaster. He would be the first to chew us out if we did something stupid. But at the same time, he would be one of the first people to let us know how proud he was when we did something right. And I really want to thank Chris Phillips for being there with me. And if you haven't met Chris, he's the bald guy right there. And I highly suggest you meet him because he's one heck of a guy. And the final person, trust me, I'm almost done. The final person is this man right here, Scott Edmondson. Scott has been my Cub master, my scout master, my leader in general since I was a kid. When Keith and I were in the Cubs and we crossed over, Scott decided he was going to cross over with us. And when I think about Scott being a scoutmaster, a few things come to my mind. The 30-minute lectures at the end of a meeting, because...
1 minute. 1 minute.
Sorry, 1 hour. And then he would also make sure that we did everything we could. He made sure that we were always determined and that we always put everything that we could, that we were doing our best. And I know Scott is proud of every single one of these boys down here. And I know that he believes that every single one of these boys right here can do anything that they can put their mind to. Scott, if you'll come up here and close us out. Thank you. Oh, wait, hold up. There's one more thing. When I crossed over, Scott gave us all a quarter. And on the quarter, on the back of it, you probably can't see it, but there's an eagle on there. Scott said that when you become an eagle, I want that quarter back. And this quarter has been taped inside of my first scout book. You can probably see the tape marks on the book in the back, with a piece of tape over it that said, "Do not spend," because I was a boy and quarters were like, Scott, I want to give you back this quarter that probably still has some tape residue on it.
Well, one thing that's really special about this quarter, let me tell you the story behind it. There was a gentleman that used to work at the scout shop. I can't think of his first name. His name was Mr. Smith. He worked at the scout shop. He passed away a few years ago. But every time I'd go into the scout shop and I'd be buying all the merit badges, or even back in Cubs, when I was buying the awards, I would see a little kid come in there, and this man would walk up to the kid and start talking to him about scouting, and he'd reach in his pocket and he'd say, "Here, I want you to have this quarter, and I want you to bring it back to me when you become Eagle Scout." And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And so I started that, and it was with Grant and Keith's group that I started this. When they crossed over or when they earned their scout joining badge, I would give them each a quarter. And I've done that for every scout that we've had come along. And I'm hoping that one day that I'll get rich. I don't think I will off of these quarters.
I think that's the first one you've done.
But these are special, and this is, Grant's right, this is the first one I've gotten back so far. Keith is also an Eagle. Keith has not had his Eagle Quarter of Honor yet. I hope you hadn't spent your quarter and are going to give it back to me. But that's the meaning behind this quarter, and I'm not going to spend this quarter either. I'm going to put it up, and I hope I have a whole string of these quarters that I can put away and cherish for a long time. And since Grant got to talk about his life in scouting, I wanted to talk about a little bit about some of Grant's life in scouting and do a little slideshow with some pictures. And Grant kind of talked about my slideshow. I thought it was really cool because he mentioned many people that are in this slideshow with him. Wayne, if you want to go ahead and start with that first picture. This, I believe, is Grant as a Cub Scout with his with his Pinewood Derby car. I don't think Grant won a single race. But actually, I don't remember how well Grant did in Pinewood Derby, but he's grinning. That's all that matters. So if we can go to the next slide, I believe.
Because that's before I lost.
This is the wisdom, I think, that we kept hearing about in the in the presentation. But Grant talked about me being his leader, but Tom was his den leader. I believe throughout his whole Cub Scout, or just for a couple of years, and this is, of course, when they were in Weeblos, and Tom did a wonderful job, and we were thrilled to have Tom also cross over with Grant and become a leader in our scout troop. And then this next one, of course, is when Grant earned his Arrow of Light, which is the highest award you can earn in Cub Scouting. And then the same night, go ahead to the next one, Wayne, he crossed over into Cubs. And Grant said there were 4 of them that crossed over. There were 4 from that den, and there were 4 others from another den, which I probably shouldn't talk about that because it doesn't look good for me, but it does talk about Grant and Keith sticking with it because they are the only 2 from the 8 boys that crossed over. We had some of them went on the first camping trip, and it was kind of I'm going to talk about that camping trip in a minute. I think it ran some of them off, that camping trip did. But it was a fun time, and so actually this next slide is from the first camping trip. It was a really cool camping trip. We built a monkey bridge on this trip, and the boys had a blast with that monkey bridge, and that's Grant posing with one end of the monkey bridge. Go on to the next slide, and you'll see Grant starting to cross that monkey bridge, and he's kind of thinking, this scouting thing's not too hard. I think I can handle this. Go on to the next slide, Wayne, and you see that scouting is not always the easiest thing in the world. But on this particular camping trip, it came a thunderstorm. We were at Lake Lurleen, and it came a thunderstorm, and I mean, it was booming and lightning and raining hard, and there were some of those boys. I learned something about, Grant recognized my assistant scoutmasters, and I was really hoping these 2 guys would be here. Doug Williamson and Clay Rickles were on this trip, and I was hoping they'd be here today because they would remember the importance of assistant scoutmasters. And I found the importance of having assistant scoutmasters set up their tents on either side of me on that trip because there were a lot of screaming boys. This was the first trip for these 8 boys. I don't remember if all 8 of them went on this trip, but most of them did. And with that rain and thundering, I had 2 or 3 of them come down there, Mr. Edmondson, and I start putting on my shoes and trying to find my rain gear. And then I hear Clay on the side say, "What do you need, Grant?" "My tent's getting wet." "Grant, go back to bed." That's what a good assistant scoutmaster does. And then a little while later, somebody else came down there, Mr. Edmondson, and Doug's on the other side and says, "What do you need?" I think it was Bobby Harris. "What do you need, Bobby?" "Grant won't go to sleep." "Go back to bed, Bobby." I didn't have to move. It was great. And so that's why I keep great assistant scoutmasters around me all the time. Let's go on to the next one. And Grant mentioned most of these guys in this picture when he was talking about these older boys. And every time I see this picture, I just think of the song about "Get by with a little help from my friends," because that's what he's doing right here, having a blast at summer camp. And if you'll notice, believe it or not, that's JT that looks like he's about 3 feet tall. And Rhett and Dylan, and of course that's Jordan. Unfortunately, that's one of the boys we lost out of this group, but they moved off, so we won't give them too hard of a time. Let's go on to the next one. And of course, Grant talked about Keith, and this was also the first year at summer camp. Grant and Keith in their tent at summer camp, and they stuck together all the way through Scouts, and I'm really proud of these guys sticking together. And Grant was really not a very happy Scout. You can tell in this next slide, he wasn't very happy much of the time. Actually, he seemed to always be happy, except when it was thundering and lightning at night. And then, he did learn a lot of skills in scouting, and he talked about the canoeing trip. Go ahead to that next slide. This is Grant and JT in that canoeing trip, and I wish I had a picture of them going backwards down that.
Speaking of this canoeing trip, you guys know how hard canoes are built. They're made to withstand, not bend and stuff. On this canoeing trip, on that same waterfall that JT and I went backwards down, we get down and we kind of look around, try and see where Scott's at. Scott's holding his pack over his head in the water with his canoe bent up, and there's water pouring out of it. And so Scott really enjoyed that trip.
I did try to break the canoe in half. Luckily, I was able to get it out before it did, but it did kind of fold in half. And that's the fun we have in scouting. The next one, you'll see Grant is kind of terrified going into that rapid. That's the big rapid on this particular run. This is down at Bulldog Bend on the Cahaba, and that was a lot of fun. But you see here we're learning some scout skills, and Grant really wasn't too sure about those rapids. But on to the next one. This, I believe, is Tom bestowing some more of that wisdom. But it's very interesting that Grant mentioned George Coburn, because this picture is actually at George Coburn's Eagle Scout Court of Honor. And I can imagine Tom is probably saying, one day you're going to be up there. And here he is. And then, of course, we're learning some more skills, and bless that horse's heart. I don't think the horse was big enough for Grant, but I think the horse did survive. Let's see, and then here's at summer camp.
Yes, I did get thrown out of a petting zoo for chasing sheep. But let's be honest, who doesn't like to chase sheep?
Well, and I'll have to say that was one of those trips that I left my assistant scoutmasters in charge. I was not on that trip. So you see what happens when I don't go. So Grant was a pretty good shot, I believe, with that shotgun. At least he could shoot it. I don't know if he hit the clays. Did you ever hit any of the clays?
I did hit the clays.
He did hit the clays, and I think this was probably Grant's second year at summer camp. So we're learning lots of skills, including, Grant had to be disciplined quite often. I don't even remember actually what happened. I think Keith had something to do with that black eye.
No, you got pushed in.
Oh, I like the discipline story better.
You should have seen Keith after. We don't have any pictures of that. It might scare the children.
All right, and then I believe we all learned in the scout law, a scout is clean. And so we have this picture of Grant. That's at Adventure Valley at summer camp. And then we have more skills, I believe, that we're learning. And I think this one reminded me of when Grant was actually a Weeblo scout, because they were the chief patrol in Weeblos. Was that not correct? Do you remember your den cheer at the pack meetings?
Absolutely not.
Oh, come on, Tom, do you remember it? There you go. Shoot the bow, kill the buffalo. And Grant, do you want to demonstrate it for us? No, okay. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Let's see. Grant liked showing off how good he did. Now, you really can't see that target there, but he really did a good job. Of course, he's still got the black eye. And he did a really good job of shooting at that target, and he liked showing things off. And Grant, on this camping trip, Pat, you might remember, you went to Sequoia, did you not? Do you remember Friday afternoon, the water carnival? We have an event at the water carnival called... We had an event at the water carnival called the Canoe Tug of War, and that's where they put 5 guys in a canoe, tie 2 canoes together, and then without paddles, they're paddling with their hands. They have a tug of war.
That's it. We're done.
And Grant, and a part of the getting in or starting out this competition is you actually have to get in the canoe without swamping it, and then after, if you win it, you have to get out without swamping it as well. And you're in like at least waist deep water, maybe a little higher depending on how tall you are, and so you kind of have to jump up into the canoe, and the other guys kind of have to hold it. Well, Grant failed to tighten up his tie string. And I'll never forget the Court of Honor right after this summer camp. We have a Court of Honor in August. Right after the summer camp, I had told Tom that I had this picture. Of course, luckily now, it could be worse. I was standing on the pier. If I had been standing on the bank, you see what kind of shot they got on the bank. But Tom was a little worried, and he asked me before that Court of Honor, because I always do slideshows at our Court of Honors, and he asked me, he says, "You didn't put that picture of Grant in there, did you?" I said, "Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. I'm saving it for his Eagle Court of Honor." So, all right, but then Grant did grow up in scouting, and his next shot is at a later Camp Sequoia on Wednesday night, where we had an Order of the Era call out, and this is Grant when he was called out for his Order of the Era. And then Grant learned the importance of nutrition. He's always drinking milk. Got milk? But then also, not only did he learn a lot of skills, he also learned how to teach skills. And I think in this picture, he's actually teaching somebody to tie a knot. Daniel may be teaching Grant how to tie a knot. I'm not real sure. But that is actually what we are really all about in scouting, is learning to be leaders, learning to teach each other. These boys growing up and becoming successful and important part of the community and having citizenship and that kind of thing. We've got a guy at work that he's a young guy. Actually, he's on a summer program from Auburn. Smart guy. He puts these quotes on his whiteboard every day, and I thought it was very interesting the other day. He had a quote on there that I just thought was perfect for Grant's Eagle Scout, and I didn't know the guy that he was quoting. The quote was by a guy named John Ruskin, and I don't know who John Ruskin is, so I looked him up, and he's actually an art critic, and I thought that was interesting because Grant, he's not an artist, but he enjoys the fine arts. Obviously, he's in drama at school. Grant did play the trombone for a while. He hurt my feelings when he quit band, but I understood. He was more serious about the drama. But I thought it was interesting that this particular guy was quoted, and this guy was into art, and he had several. I looked him up, and he had several quotes. He was a pretty smart guy. He talked about when love and skill work together, expect a masterpiece. And I thought that was really good because we talk about in Scouts all the time, find something that you're passionate about and work hard at it. And that goes right along. And this guy says fine art is that in which the hand, the head, and the heart go together. But the quote the gentleman had on his whiteboard that I found really interesting says, the highest reward for a person's toil is not what they get for it, but what they become by it. And I really think that's what we're all about in Boy Scouting, is creating not just Eagle Scouts, but creating men that are successful and that contribute to the community and continue to contribute to their community. And so, Grant, with that being said, the process of earning your Eagle Scout Award does not end with this ceremony, but I have confidence that you will honor Scouting with your life and service as today's Scouting has honored you. The eagle soars high and seeks to rest upon lofty peaks. As an Eagle Scout, you too must soar high. You must not swerve from the path of duty. You must strive to obtain that which is the highest and noblest in life. Will you try to do that, Grant?
Yes, sir, I will.
By the authority vested in me as Scoutmaster of Troop 322, I declare this Court of Honor is now complete. Assistant Senior Patrol Leader Joshua, will you come forward and please close this meeting?
Everyone, please rise. Color Guard, advance. Color Guard, retire the colors. This meeting is now adjourned. There will be refreshments served in the back. Please stay and enjoy. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the opening ceremony. Color Guard, present the colors.